Okay. I've been listening to a couple of studies, little thing, Nas, and a couple other people, Eric Dyson. Should be tagging them on this. Oh. So, if in fact you happen to catch this, rather Facebook or YouTube, leave a comment and at least know that this is getting through. Still testing this particular format. Yeah. So wait a little minute, see if anybody else is going to come through a little bit. Still listening to little bits and pieces of this over here. Trap music to me, as all forms of indigenous, local, regional music have to be paid attention to. Like for me, one of the greatest slept-on artists of all time is Scarface. Yeah, true. Scarface. It's another one I should probably drag in here. And those cats, because I've been digging what they're doing with their format. This is a little off of my regular format. I ain't got my mics hooked up. I ain't got my lights really hooked up. So you just got to deal with what you're dealing with. But we rolling. So as long as we rolling, we good. Trying to get my mind around a lot of what I really want to get out because, you know, I still haven't gotten to that point where you just write it out, look at it damn near off a prompter or something like that. And I'm not that big on talking to my box. But yeah, I really want to get on a lot of this trending stuff that's happening right now. And how a lot of us are flocking to these things with their point of views. I guess you can hear me because, well, I'm looking at my little feed there. All right, so I'm 3 minutes in, so I'm gonna go on and get started. Emerson said that geography is destiny. Now, whether you ultimately buy that or not, the geographical underpinnings of particular aesthetic forms need to be paid strict attention to. So, yeah. All right. Let me get to it. Bottom line, you know, I come from the parents very active in the civil rights movement back in the 60s, and due to the mere fact that I was somewhat of an advanced child that was exposed to a great deal of what I would say today, I should be too young to recall those things as vivid, just due to the mere fact that, well, I was big enough to be there and enough to not be involved to a lot of the other things that a lot of other people during that era. I'm a late bloomer, not a Generation X or Y or Z, and human levels are so far ahead of that I got a grandkid, or I have a grandkid. And here we are, it's 2021, and this is WNDC in DC. What it means to me now is really the fact that being here and living here in the nation's capital, this satanic music park, some would say, makes a lot more sense spiritually, aesthetically, what I get from just the earth itself uh, has a vast amount of blackness. I mean, 200 years of historic people have evolved mentally and spiritually on this dirt. And so, as I'm sitting here tonight, this morning, just basically, talking a hole in some people's screen, um, really to deep into this thing. I don't want to be, but this brother from another mother has something to say. Um, so yeah, I can go straight directly into you know, using uh that brand, Polite, and his as well, just due to the mere fact that he's a product of that genre pop culture. Now, I'm not saying that he's of that. I said that he was created within that when he was a young baby Polite. I'm pretty sure that, like for many of the people of that generation, their creations weren't as polite. We weren't in a very polite culture or time in our lives. Uh, you know, here is on the 10th year anniversary of, and some of us are straying from everything from the COVID to the Afghanistan thing and this, that, and the other without even understanding that 10 years ago, a lot of the hype, a lot of the structure into which we are now existing in our culture, the feeling of supremacy, the feeling of being um, filtered, um, suppressed, even is more powerful now than what our technology was back 10 years ago, let alone what we're talking by way of 20, 30 years ago. I mean, Mr. Pike, he's almost 40. Funny thing about 40 is, uh, you know, um, before I turned 40, I used to hear older people say, life begins after 40. Everything before 40 will end up being practice. And, it did make sense until I got well off into my 40s and start realizing that your inner gangster is set up. And at that era in time, you enter a certain grownness that as you go into your mid 40s and now you're entering your 50s and you start thinking about, oh man, I'm about to be elderly. And most people, rather freak out or try to hold on to their youth. And very few of them actually aspire to try to evolve in more of a direction of being more perceived as wise instead of just elderly. And I'm going to flip around a lot. So if you can hang, then hang. Because, like I said, I'm not going to be very polite about this, but I'm going to be honest. And honesty is not uh, supposed to be polite. And it doesn't matter where we're at today. The fact still remains that people got the name and they, as well as their as to is what how it's been going on. A lot of us as people of color, we're jumping in the back end of bashful, or back end of shame, or back end of being honest, just due to the mere fact that from slavery on, our communities and our cultures have always been very careful at how we are to portray ourselves, our culture, our people out around everyone, including the white folks. We don't want them to use it against us. And yet here we are as people of color uh, just in this country, who are enabled to understand where we're standing today. As united we stand. We're not united, but we're standing. We're all standing. The miracle of the government actually identified Juneteenth, the last leg of the emancipation of enslaved people and people of color, is a astounding, astonishing kind of achievement, and yet we are so into so many other feelings in our life as we've evolved, mostly due to the ignorance and the insensitivities of the reality that our parents, or in some cases your parents, um, actually, thought about, aspired, actually, lived, died, protest, dreamed, and prayed for back in the days when we as people of color were more under the scrutiny of a culture that no longer exists in that manner. The atrocities of the audacity that we had been treated with for what some would call 200, 400 years has grown so much in our own country, in our own society, that all it takes is the recollection of it by anyone in an offensive manner, and they can get a hate crime. We can get a hate crime in reverse for just the same thing. And it's not as simple, and yet it is very unique right now. And, and I'm still trying to be honest while keeping you in mind that, we, are trying to act like we have such an offensive thing on uh, being polite, where, lots of people ain't very polite about the polite issue no more than they want to be polite about the R. Kelly issue, or many of the others. And yet we as a culture are so behind in the times of the audacity of the shameful accusing or accusations of our celebrities or sorts, that we can't even compare them to the Elvises, or the Jerry Lee Lewises, or um, or the J. Eggers, or the Kennedys, or or the Rock Hudsons, or the the Errol Flynns, or the King Jameses, for God's sake. And yet, we often still exist in our culture where, while we still like to bask in all of this celebrity gossip and whatnot, we still hold on to, a certain ignorance in our culture, where many of these supposed woke people, still have this phrase of, that's white folk stuff, that's them devil folks, that's them demon folks, that's them this and the other store. So when in reality, no matter how much you want to claim a certain area, group, or culture of melanin in your life, there's still blood that flows through our veins, in many cases, from the shameful embarrassment of ownership and just association or whatnot. That also includes many of them too. So, not just the light-skinned Negroes, but you can understand what I'm saying here. And here we are as people of color, still not capable of being able to better identify ourselves in the same light that many people of non-color, white folks, they can do it. They can talk to you and tell you the difference between a redneck or hillbilly, or white trash, or blue blood, or a Kennedy, or or and then you got all of the other. Oh man, he's Polish, he's Irish, he's Scottish, he's this, that, and the other. All of these things, and then we want to get into the Native American thing, and I've got a bone to pick with everybody who thinks we all derive from one place or another. as a reason for them to not claim this dirt when there are more of us of color that are actually indicative of this dirt, and we're here when people found it. And in a lot of cases, we've been cheated out of our Native American lineage as well, just due to the mere fact that we've existed just as long as some tribes have evolved from other tribes as they've basically coexisted with us, and they still don't want to claim us, even though we claimed them on the last Million Man March. Look that up. But speaking of trying to be polite, um, that in itself goes in that same vein because now we've got the Elijahs, we've got the brother polites, we've got the we got the Yorks, we've got the Jim Joneses, we've got all of these other people that the Marcus Garveys, we got the people that we got the Malcolm X's, we got all of these, we got the Reverend Ikes. We've got all of these other, people. We've got the Daddy Graces. We've got all these other, people that the more that you find out about their personal life, the more that their professional stature is degraded just due to the audacity of you basically, taking offense to them and what they do over what they say. And yet, we ain't got the what they say part down yet, as a people. And that's the reason why there is no people as a real people that can be as united as we want to claim ourselves to be here, let alone on this earth or on this dirt or this, that, and the other. And being honest, but I'm not being direct. And there's a reason. If you're smart enough, I hope that you can somehow or another decipher some of what's being said here, because there's a lot going on in these subjects. And I don't think it's fair for me to try to be like everyone else and be so open about that. I'd rather attract people who can follow more so from a parable state than a basic standard, what you would call your English class state. Just make it short, man. Just tell me what's on your mind. Just be direct. Just cut it short. Just tell me the whole thing. We are in a state where we find ourselves like to play on both sides of the fence. We believe anyone and everyone is innocent until proven guilty, even if all of the things that we are finding out about these people just seem to stack up way to that past, or just the mere fact that we've been sitting on bated breath just waiting for them to mess up. Excuse me. Oh, and then we still sitting here dealing with this COVID shit. Anytime you want to cough or sneeze or anything else, people look at you crazy. So don't do nothing crazy else. All of a sudden people start asking for your DNA, got you, on some charges and whatnot. And now you hating on the mere fact that they trying to live the best life that they can right now before shit get real tough, regardless of which way it might turn out. He might have good enough lawyers, to do that. I mean, he might have to, enjoy that damn Rolls Royce and that balling out and this, that, and the other, just in case he has to have a fire sale because they're going to go extra innings in the law. And, these legal folks, they can get a guilty man off if you do it the right way, but it's going to cost you. But this is America. And I think in a lot of cases, a lot of people don't quite understand. We try to act like this is the same America it was back when they started it when we were in slavery, or back when they started it when we were emancipated, or back when we started it when they made the First World War, and we started inviting all of these new white folks to be white folks up in here too. Because you had to realize, a lot of the people here weren't direct descendants of pilgrims. So this folklore that they basically conditioned us so many times in our generations to believe that the white man or this, that, and the other, or the man in power or the 1%, those people, the man, or or for some people the woman, you know, are the ones always keeping us down. We're in a whole new, very awkward state of reality. And for many of us who basically now found themselves more privileged to enjoy the fruits of emancipation. You know, it's my God given right to feel the way I want to feel about stuff, and so that whole little dirty little secret that lots of people around the world like to talk about Americans, or most of the majority of them, as to how they basically live in a state of uh, volunteer voluntarily miseducated ignorance. I don't need to have to learn nothing more than this. This is the way it is, and it's the law of the West, and the whatnot. And yet, you know, uh, everybody's a freak. Nobody lives a straight life. The more power, the more problems. You know, uh, the more freedoms that some people find available, the more that they desire it, without the concern about there are levels to these things. You just can't think that you can be up there balling like Bush or like 45 or something like that, and you ain't paid no dues, and you ain't invested in nothing. You ain't got no stocks, no bonds, no property, no business. You're not structured in a nice tax thing, or it just ain't happening like that. And that's the discomfort that a lot of us have now, that we've been exposed to this great big world wide web and all of its advertisements, and yet none of its consequences or repercussions on a personal basis. It's how we are now with this whole COVID vid situation. In America, while we still dealing with vaxxer, non-vaxxer, this, that, and the other, we're still in a state right now where whatever we've been told, whatever we thought we were supposed to believe this time last year, is no more different than the way that we were taught and told during 9/11, when we believed that whoever just came up on our soul and blew up those two buildings that the planes went up into, and yet all those other buildings fell with it. You know, uh, we don't want to talk about Enron. We don't want to talk about all the other things that were covered up. We don't want to talk about how they really changed everything. We don't want to talk about the mere fact that no matter how much we want to play with the whole 9/11 thing and how it sits right now with the Afghans and all these other people, and the Gaddafi and Saddam, and and Muslims and Israel and all this other stuff like that. The mere fact that at a certain point in time in this American culture, at its light and enlightenment, they were so ahead of the whole conspiracy understanding that it was printed on our money already. We spent years, all the way to what, the 20s, 30s, around the 40s, that they finally changed over the money. The $2 bill went from, the one building on the back to, that other little fictional picture with the black guy at the signing of the Declaration of Independence. That if you fold up that, or if you go to your new 5 and 10 and 20 and $50, and you fold them up, it looks like different scenes of 9/11. And yet many of us will try to act like we're aware of things, and yet spiritually speaking, we can't even judge the amount of damage that's been done to our own psyche, when we can't even recall, as people who were adults during that era, what even God rest his soul, Prince, so eloquently left in the song, "Oh, 2000 party over, oops, out of time, out of time. But tonight I'm gonna party like it's what, 1999, and then 2001." All logic that we had of how it felt to be in living the life La Vida Loca in 1999 became totally as impossible to remember as it did for a lot of the baby boomers, the older ones especially, who will tell you that As an adult, I can't remember what it was like back in the 50s and the 60s and the 70s, because if you can, you weren't there. Now it's the same for a lot of people who had to live through the 70s and 80s and the 90s. As you now talk to adults who are born in this new decade, where, it's 2021. We've got 21-year-old people out there that are now, gaining doctorates and masters in college, that you just can't tell them, well, you don't know nothing about how it was back in our day, because they can't even imagine how, many of us can't imagine how it felt back in the era when we didn't have internet, when we didn't have TV, when we didn't have radio. We can't relate enough to explain how much change has happened to us as humans, but most importantly, as people of color, and all the people that are connected to us, people of color, which is just about everybody else. Because we can't help them because they can't help us, because we can't help each other because we're not a basic standard. I live in Washington, D.C., in my crib, and all around me, there are people that have been here, that while we all look alike, there is just about an embassy for every person of color on this planet that exists here in this district, except for black folks. The best we got is African American Museum, and the mere fact that it's a combination of all of that. And yet, up until this era, there still was a reservation for each one of these micro groups of people, from the boulets to the lodges and the orders and the frats, and the debutantes, and the uppity Negroes, and the island people, and then the African people, and then the Bill Cosby people, and and all these other little things that, while it looked like we were all the same people, they held a right and responsibility to be able to have a certain distinguishable sign of them not being misconstrued with all the other misfits they live around in their neighborhood. Even though we still lived a life of, trying to be shepherds to our own sheep, and now we're all sheep. They can't figure out why it's so bad for us to not be able to feel so good about why being honest is not so polite when we're sitting back here trying to get, back into our state of wokeness. You can't wake up sleeping people who are not even asleep. They're numb. But it's not just you, it's lots of us. And we can't plant the seeds of nutritious value in the dirt that we basically evolved into from the tyranny that created us. We're all here in the new big game. This is the age of Aquarius. This is game time. And a lot of the things that we've always feared and believed were the things that are going to suppress us and us all. They can only fool you but so long, but these things on this earth are going to automatically shift into a whole different reality. That the next step for us in humanity will be probably Star Trek. Not, all the other ones yet. It'll be like the first season with James T. Kirk. James T. Kirk is the nephew of 45. Huh. Or maybe Biden. And yet, we want to try to act like we can, be offended by everyone else's morals. And, we want to have a say-so about everybody else's dirt and pain and struggling and whatnot. And yet, the best ones are the ones that, you heard about, about. The best ones are the ones that, You need to start, oh, I want to get into that because somebody else was talking about that, and I want to know a little more gossip, the trending thing. Now we want to always be the naysayers of somebody's brand. Not like white folks don't do that too, but black folks ain't that many of us anyway. I mean, we're still a minority, even though we're more of a majority if you count all the other people who ain't white and all the other people that used to be white that don't want to be white no more. So if you line us all up like that, there's a lot more polites in the system, so it ain't like, we can't see, polite being invited to an Ernestine party. If only he had his numbers up and he had more than one rolls. No offense, bro, but keep on doing what you're doing. I'm a support just the mere fact, that you out there, been following you for a long time, and long time fan, first time critic. Would that be the way I'll put this? Yeah. What get me is all these other people that are building brands on top of you. And the mere fact that, man, us people as black people, we sure do love how to spank black men. We love that. Can't wait to, I knew it. You one of them. This, that, and the other. And you sitting back there going, oh. As if there ain't so many other more things out there, and you could put so much more energy into whooping this boy who basically just happened to be living his best life with a car and some women's and some game, when there's some people out here that are ruining your life on a daily basis that you voting for or ain't trying to vote for because you don't like voting. You don't know nothing about that political thing, and yet they out there doing more than, I mean, we're talking John Benet Ramsey shit and higher, and yet you want to play this right here and talk about this right here about this dude, and half of the doggone people that's employing you might be into some shit so much more deeper than that. You don't even see it. We ain't gonna get into the whole Asian perspective. We don't even see that because just like they don't see what be happening in the black community when they just see us as black folks, you can't tell the difference between Cantonese, Japanese, this, that, and the other, this, that, and the other, when they all just say, look, we like that. All they got to do is play that shit off. Biggest gangsters out there, too. So we're not just going to get too busy and trying to act like, black folks shit don't stink, but it's the worst ones are the woke ones. The worst ones are the greater than our ones. The worst ones are the ones who have been trying to act like they are good Negroes, but not niggas, and yet, not necessarily down for them when the revolution comes. And when the revolution comes is a good old record that talks about what's happening right now. When we wanted to try to act like, oh yeah, we got to be ready, this, that, and the other. Are you really ready for where we're at? Because if you were that ready, then it wouldn't feel so funny when I'm trying to be so honest about the mere fact that I'm not going to be polite, but I am going to be real. And I am going to be honest enough to tell you that all the other stuff you want to pack in there, I knew them, man, that poly stuff, that this player stuff, that this, that woke stuff, that this, that, the other. It don't matter what kind of bullet you want to use to shoot a messenger. The message is still not accomplished. It ain't like you can do it better than they doing it because you ain't doing nothing but basically following on the next subject. And I hope you follow on this one enough to pass this along because if I make any sense at all to somebody, I would hope that if nothing else, you would like, share, and subscribe so I can get my numbers up with some of these other people that are out here that are basically just feeding you with a girl. Let me tell you, fucking Wendy and her little white guy, because she can't handle none of them little gay boys anymore. So she get her white boy because you can't see the same shit in him. Oh, mistress, I love your boobs. But y'all want to talk about, how polite into some deep shit. Oh, and this, that, and the other. What about her mother? What about this, that, and the other? What about a whole lot of the generations of people who basically still ain't survived out of the whole crack era that created them? What about the doggone government cheese and the toxic shock syndrome and the welfare and and the drugs and the crime and the civil rights movement, the Black Power movement, Vietnam and Agent Orange and the 50s with Leave It to Beaver, and how you ain't Ozzy or Harriet. What about, the James Baldwins and the Nikki Giovannis, and the Angela Davises, but y'all can't handle no LBGTQ, INMOP, at all. And yet there's no bracket for people of color as a whole to unify unless they go jump over with a bunch of people that they're cool when you're with them until all of a sudden they got this issue about you and your whole. Now you can't. Now you got to decide between, do I stay with my LBGT thing? That's how we ended up with this Black Lives Matter group of people who started that little thing. And yet nobody can get the mere fact that, all of this shit is some corporate shit. Once you decide to start, backing a brand, and that's what all these people that I'm talking about are brands, then you can't realize that even our money is a brand. We don't have a note no more on our dollars. This shit is a federal note thing. This is a corporation who owns us. We are all owned under this thing. Money rules everything around us. Cream, get your money. Dollar bill, y'all. And yet we can't think about all of that when we want to sit back around there and just try to play who's got more, who should have less, and why should we leave, these people out to get canceled. And this new culture that the only thing we got good is supporting who we canceling today. What we want to do. We want to cancel everything. Oh, now we got this war thing and all these people back there and all these other people who lived this life thinking that they was defending this doggone truth and freedom and everything, got this PTSD, just like I got this military PTSD over all of the beliefs of what they thought was being good, while it was just justifying the labor for the time. And now we sitting back here realizing, oh, you want to care about all of that other stuff, but the only reason why they even got an extra note when there's so many people right now out here on this planet that needs our help too, is just due to the mere fact that they were the ones that were initially blamed for 9/11. And yet nobody wants to talk about them other buildings, how they went down. No, damn well them people over there that's just trying to get their way back over here, used to hang out with us when we went over there. You gonna tell me all of them people are the ones that tore down all of this stuff in New York and whatnot? I came to DC, tore up some stuff over there, and basically some other stuff, Pennsylvania or what? Come on, man. There's still people out there right now that believes that Donald Trump is still in charge. And they can't even understand the dude was one of the biggest Hillary fans up until he changed and switched and flipped, and yet we can't even identify a Dixiecrat without even understanding how the hell, the Civil War was all fought between the Confederates and the Union. But we're not the Union Party no more because, well, we can't even, respect the mere fact that, that's that Black Wall Street people too. There was us and y'all in a lot of those cases because we were the first Republicans, but it was a whole different republic. Now this is a whole different game we playing with, and everybody wants to play red and blue, and there's no red and blue. They got y'all playing this damn dumb ass game where we're all suffering under the same corporate people who got your butt tied into everything, including this COVID shit and everything. While all you got to do is to sit back and complain about how polite we should be or not. Come on, man. If there was ever time for to say wake up, it ain't gonna be today. but it should be soon. But that's something for you to think about on your own because, well, you know, I'm just taking out time putting stuff out so that maybe, just maybe, somebody out there might get some of what I'm saying and it might help them some and whatever they're going through in the next day. And if it is so, I wish that you could share and whatnot, because I'm already over 40 something minutes. And we all know that most people who like this stuff, if you're not entertaining, enough for people to watch you on a TV or on your phone or something else like that, and all of the other bells and whistles ain't working well, and I ain't got enough side jokes or advertisement or something like that to keep you busy, you probably have been done in the first 2, 3, 5 minutes. I just couldn't take it. I just turned it off. My name is Hafiz. They call me Alpha Master Pimp, Sir Easy, Amp, Sir Easy, active dominant, grandfather, veteran, black man stuck in a black man's body. You're living in a time that uh, I hope that if I can do anything more at this moment, it could be evolving into more of a wise old man than just an elderly black dude in a black man's body. Just taking up your time, talking a hole in your head, and ain't trying to be polite about it. You good? Where's my off button? I probably wasn't even on this bullshit.